Over the course of WoW's history, there's been a gigantic amount of mounts added to the game. A decent chunk of these mounts would be made unavailable to players and are presumably never to be re-added with most cases. Blizzard has been known to add content that is very much, if you didn't play during this time you don't get it rewards, as to incentivize people to play more frequently. In this video, we're going to be going over the rarest unobtainable mounts in the game. The only rule is that if it can still be acquired in the black market auction house, then it will not be included on this list, even though its original method to obtain was removed. With the beginning of our list number 10, we have the Frostbrood Proto-Wyrm mount. This mount was added in patch 9.2.7 of Shadowlands as a promotional material for the newly released Wrath Classic. In order to receive this mount, you would need to download and play a Death Knight character on the Wrath Classic servers and fully complete the DK starting zone. Once you've completed this activity, you can log back into retail and receive the Undead Proto-Drake. This was also at the time Dragonflight was just revealed to players, and the expansion was very close to rolling around, and just fit thematically with what was coming up. Some speculated this mount would be allowed to Dragon Ride, the core feature of Dragonflight, but were let down when it was added as just a generic mount to fly around on. Thankfully though, with BlizzCon 2023 finished, Blizzard has revealed that the War Within expansion will add this dragon riding system to nearly all existing fly mounts, with the option to fly the original method from TBC as well. This mount was available with the launch of Dragonflight came around, so those who didn't complete the DK starting zone, the Wrath, would never be able to obtain this mount. Even for non-classic players, this mount wasn't super difficult to learn, as Blizzard had changed the process required to level a DK by allowing your first crit DK character to not require the level restriction. Typically, to make a DK, you must already have a level 55 character on the current realm, but with the addition of this mount, this was lifted and made much easier for all levels of players to learn. And at number 9, we have the Warlord's Deathwheel mount. This unique mount was the winner of the Azeroth's Chopper reality series on YouTube and was thus rendered in-game for players to use. Azeroth Choppers was an episodic series that showed the process of a group of people creating custom motorcycles styled in the likeness of WoW's factions, the Alliance and Horde. When the series concluded and the finished versions of the both bikes were revealed to players, they were given the option to vote on which one they liked most, and whichever one won would be added to the game. The Warlord's Deathwheel, originally named the Goblin Lawnmower, was the winner of this contest and would be given to all players who logged in between its edition on June 24th, 2014 and September 30th, 2014 for free. That was it. All you did was log in, and your account would be rewarded the mount, and only Horde characters would be eligible to use it. Interestingly, the Alliance counterpart of this mount was also added into the game, aptly named the Champion's Treadblade. You wouldn't just get it for free. Alliance players had to locate a special NPC in Stormwind that sells you the mount for 100,000 gold. Because of this, those who missed the promotion for the Horde mount will never be able to have it, but the Alliance, the losers of the contest, will forever have the ability to get the bike. Horde players have asked for their motorcycle to make a return to the game, thinking it's unfair that the Alliance will have a permanent access to their bike rather than the actual winners. With the addition of the trading posts, we've seen removed mounts be added on its roster, so it's not impossible for it to show up again in the future. Following our 9th entry, we have the Primal Flamesaber mount. This mount was added as a promotional reward for playing one of Blizzard's other games, Heroes of the Storm. Heroes of the Storm was Blizzard's own MOBA game that was released in June 2nd, 2015. It would cross over all of Blizzard's characters from their various genres to brawl against one another in a team-based battle arena. This promotion was added on February 14th, 2017, and was removed on March 14th of the same year. This meant players only had 30 total days to obtain this mount. The criteria for this reward was you needed to play 15 matches of Heroes of the Storm with someone on your friends list and only as a character from the Warcraft franchise. You weren't allowed to play against AI enemies on easy mode or against other people while winning or losing, and would still count towards your goal, so as long as you play with a friend and as a Warcraft character. Once you've done so, you'll receive your Primal Flamesaber mount in WoW and it would be done. What made this mount so complicated was that it was one of the only mounts in WoW's existence to require you to play a completely different game in order to obtain it. Not everyone enjoys the MOBA genre of games, and avoided this mount altogether and never attempted to get it. In addition, if you were a solo player in WoW, you would need a friend to help you do this at the same time as you, meaning schedules would have to align and you'd have to grind out the 15 games together. The promotion only lasted 30 days, and not everyone could fit the needed time to get the mount. Overall, a mount that needed you to play a completely different game than its source is warned for a spawn on this list, especially when its obtained data rate is just around 18% of all accounts, showing how many actually missed this promotion. And at number 7, we have Jigglesworth Sr. This mount would be added in patch 9.2.5 of Shadowlands of Season 4. Season 4 of Shadowlands introduced a completely new method of approaching raids with a system called Fated Raids. These Fated Raids would scale even the earliest raid up to your current item level and increase their difficulty with additional fixes that would both benefit or bring negative effects to your raid. Every week, the current Fated Raid would rotate to the next tier, and the other raids would be left in their original state until it was their turn once again. Eventually, all of the raids would become faded at the same time, but this was only after a couple of months of just a few rotating with themselves. In order to obtain this mount, you must complete each faded raid on its affix in its entirety on normal mode or above. This means you had to enter Castle Nathria, Sanctum of Domination, and Sepulchre of the First Ones and kill every single boss on normal mode or above while it was faded. Doing this would reward the player with Fates of the Shadowlands Raids achievement and the achievement's own reward, Jigglesworth Sr. Players during Shadowlands would already be familiar with Jigglesworth Sr. because between September 4th and September 18th of 2020, players would be given the option all to vote on the next promotional mount for Shadowlands. You would be allowed to vote once on up to 5 mounts that were prompted to players, and Jigglesworth Sr. was amongst these 5. He did lose the vote to the Wandering Ancient mount, but it was said by Blizzard it wouldn't be unlikely to see the other votes get their own spotlight in the future. This was continued with the addition of Jigglesworth, as promised by Blizzard, for completing the associated achievement. We would also see this same method persist in the Sorin Spelltome mount added in patch 9.1.5 for completing every unique Mage Tower challenge, a Tower of Tours. This mount wasn't relatively difficult to obtain, but if you were a player that is exclusively casual and doesn't rate above the LFR difficulty, this mount would be impossible to obtain. This is shown when viewing the collection rate of the mount at only 14%, but some would argue the difficulty in obtaining this mount was just plain Shadowlands alone. And at number 6, we have the Amani War Bear from patch 2.3 in the Burning Crusade. In patch 2.3, players would have the ability to venture into the brand new raid called Zul'Aman, a 6-boss instance. With this mount, players would be given one of the first renditions of a hard mode system into the game in the form of a timed event. When you begin the raid, there will be displayed timers that begin, and you'll have 20 minutes to defeat all 4 of the lower bosses. When you kill a Killzone, his timer will be extended by another 10 minutes. An Alarak will increase the timer by additional 15 minutes, while the remaining 2 bosses will not add additional time. This means you have 45 minutes total, if you manage to beat the other 2, to kill all 4. Defeating each boss in time will allow you to free 1 hostage, and for each one you free, you'll be given more loot. When you free the 4th hostage, you'll be given the item level 141 ring and the Amani War Bear mount. Only 1 mount will drop for the entire raid, but if you manage to beat the timer, it was a guaranteed drop from the chest. This mount would be removed at the release of the Wrath of the Lich King because Blizzard felt the prestige of the mount would be completely trivialized because players would be level 80, and the higher item level would allow them to beat the challenge way too easily. So in order to obtain this mount, you had to have been playing with a highly coordinated and well-versed group of people back in the Burning Crusade, a time when these things were much fewer in number. In addition, players had less guides and add-ons at their disposal to manage this task, so not many people ever got it when it was current or knew it would be removed. Funny enough, though, this mount would be replaced by the Amani Battle Bear in Cataclysm with the revamped version of Zul'Aman. This mount remains obtainable even though its methods to get it back in Cataclysm were very similar to its version in TBC, no longer requiring real prestige to get, and is one of the highest collection rates in the entire game. Maybe someday Blizzard will re-add this bear into the black market auction house, or return it in some other form. And at number 5, we have the Ahead of the Curve achievement mounts. In Mist of Pandaria, Blizzard would begin the tradition of adding a special mount reward for defeating the final encounter of the expansion The Last Raid on one of their higher difficulties. In the case of Mist of Pandaria, they would give you the Kor'kron Warwolf for killing Garrosh on normal mode or better. These mounts would continue through each expansion, and the boss must be killed during the current content and not any other patch. So, the Warwolf was made unavailable as soon as Warlords of Draenor expansion pre-patch was released. WoD would have the Grove Warden, Legion the Violet Spellwing, BFA the Uncorrupted Voidwing, Shadowlands the Carcinite Zerasteed, and in Dragonflight the manuscript that allows you to change your Proto-Drake customization into the Shadowflame version of Frax himself. If you are an active player during these raids, you will more than likely have no trouble getting these mounts, but you must certainly need guild groups capable of actually killing these bosses in order to get them. It adds an extra layer of difficulty in obtaining, but because Blizzard has made it a known tradition they will add these mounts, many players will return to the game and grind out gear and make the efforts now amongst a large amount of people that are also returned to the game for these limited time rewards. Even with that in mind, some people still miss these mounts, just because they didn't like the current expansion. It happens pretty frequently, as the obtain rate between the Uncorrupted Voidwing and the Zerasteed is a 19% collection rate difference. Following our middle entry on this list is the Brewfest Ram from 2007, added in patch 2.2, the Burning Crusade. This mount was available to players by completing the quests associated with the Brewfest holiday event and earning tickets. These tickets would then be used to purchase the Honorary Brewer Hand Stamp. This item would then begin a quest that allowed you to purchase a Brewfest Ram from the NPC Driss Tumblequick and Durotar or Pol Amberstill in Dunmorrow. In 2008 though, the event was completely changed and the hand stamps were no longer able to be purchased from the vendors and were removed permanently. Because this stamp was now gone forever, That means the original unarmored version of this mount could only be learned if you already had a hand stamp prior to the change Brewfest received in 2008. The quest was not particularly challenging for players, and were actually at a skill level that any player could approach it if they committed the time to it. The problem was getting this mount was just that no one knew it was going to be removed, nor held onto the stamp that allowed them to begin the questline for the Brewfest Ram to begin with. You can still get the armored version of this mount, the Swift Brewfest Ram, from killing Khorne Direblue in the event dungeon associated with Brewfest. Closing in at number 3, we have all the Recruiter Friend mounts. Recruiter Friend in WoW is a referral system that can be used to bring additional friends or family into WoW. A player can create a link that can bring in a maximum of 10 players to accounts without an active subscription. Players could also recruit themselves if they wished by sending the link to a separate trial Battle.net account. The players who recruit their friends will then, for as long as they continue playing and purchase the game, receive a new reward for each month they play the game, usually up to a maximum of 12 months. The player who was recruited will also receive their own benefits, including a 30-slot bag for their characters and the ability to summon themselves to their recruiter every 30 minutes. In the most recent case of Recruiter Friend, after the first month, you'll receive the Volatile Self-Driving Toolbox, the Shredderizing Glove on the second, the Snappy Buddy on the third, 30 days of game time on the fourth, the Scanner MK3 helmet on the 5th month, and the Rocket Shredder 9001 on the 6th month. After that, you'll be given 30 days of game time for every 3 months that continue to stay subscribed, at to a maximum of 12 months per recruit. There have been different Recruiter Friend deals that have existed throughout WoW's history to promote players to try and reach out to more players and get them to play so they can receive the associated rewards. In the case of this entry, the X-53 Touring Rocket, Heart of the Nightwing, and the Emerald Hippogriff mounts are all unobtainable and each require you to participate in the Recruiter Friend system. There are 2 other mounts from Recruiter Friend, the Swift Zebra and the Cindermane Charger, but these have been recently made available through the rotation of the trading post, allowing players who missed them to once again have a chance to acquire them. They did rotate out, making them unavailable once again, but it's very likely that they'll return. It's possible for the other mounts to also return to the trading posts, but for now, they remain unobtainable. The mounts aren't collected by many because not only do you need to get a friend or family member to play WoW, but they need to enjoy it enough for over half a year for most of the Recruiter Friend rewards and feel the monthly subscription is worth their time. You could always just recruit your own alt account if you really wanted to, but not many players are willing to drop an additional $15 a month for cosmetic rewards they might not use all that frequently. It's also generally a pretty lengthy time sink for the rewards, and while you could just recruit multiple alts all in a month to receive rewards, that's $15 per account for just a subscription and not buying the game itself all in one go. It's easy to say not everyone is willing to drop a few $100s on in-game cosmetics like that, and it earns a spot on this list. And at number 2, we have the Gladiator Mounts. These mounts would be given to the highest prestige of PvP players from all the way back to the Burning Crusade and the current expansion. With every patch in WoW, players would embark on a new seasonal journey. Their ranks from before would be completely reset, and new rewards would be added for everyone to get their hands on. In the case of PvP, this, of course, continues. Originally from TBC until BFA Season 1, you would need to end in the 3v3 bracket of PvP with the highest rating out of all the players, that you were literally in the top 0.5% of people. This rank has been dubbed Rank 1 by players, and adds such insane difficulty levels that only masters of PvP can truly achieve. This means you could be only a few ratings short of a team, but because they were slightly higher than you, they would receive the mount and not you. In BFA and onward, this would be changed to require you to win 50 total games at 2400 rating or above. Once this is completed, you'll be rewarded with this season's corresponding mount. For example, the rank 1 mount of Season 3 Legion was the Cruel Gladiator Storm Dragon, and the 50-win Season 4 BFA mount, the Corrupted Gladiator's Proto-Drake. Once this season has met its end, the mount included in that season is permanently removed, and there is zero method in obtaining it. It's extremely challenging for players of all skill levels, even veteran PvPers, to earn these mounts, and it can also only be done in 3v3. So even if you're really good at rated battlegrounds, you're not eligible for this mount at the end of the season. If you see anyone on any Gladiator mount, you can rest assured they commit many hours of their life to such an epic looking mount, or paid a ton of money to get carried. There are currently 35 unobtainable Gladiator mounts as of the time of writing this video. Completing our list at number 1, we have the Black Qiraji Battle Tank. Players would come to recognize this mount as the only legendary mount in the entire game's existence, and its prestige is completely earned. Back in Vanilla WoW with the release of Qiraji, every single existing server at the time would undergo a war effort that required players to contribute various crafting materials of all professions. Turning these in would progress a server-wide progress bar that, when completed, would complete the war effort. Once both factions had contributed all their resources, the NPCs will begin transferring all the materials to Silithus over 5 days. After the 5 days had passed, players who had obtained the Scepter of the Shifting Sands will be able to hit the Scarab Gong and begin the 10-hour war event that eventually opens the gate to the raid. Essentially, to obtain this mount, you would need to be one of the very few players on your entire server who wields the mentioned scepter. To get this scepter, you must complete one of the longest quest chains in WoW's entire history within the duration of the war effort. It very literally requires an entire guild to help you get this mount, because not only will you be prompted to enter the 40-man raids that exist and kill bosses, but you will also be grinding out an item called the Silithus Carapace Fragments. When you begin the quest, you'll be marked as hated by the Brood of Nozdorma reputation, and turning in these fragments will earn you the reputation with them. These drop from almost every Silithid NPC in the zone and may be traded or sold in the auction house. This farm is very competitive, as everyone is scrambling to get their own fragments to either sell or get one of their guild members the mount. PvP servers would turn Silithus into an actual war zone with how competitive people became. To quickly summarize how many fragments you need to progress to the next quest step, you would need to gather 41,400 fragments in total if you're not playing a human character. The NPCs may only drop a few fragments at a time, so this is the part where your guild really needs to aid you. Additionally, all the bug creatures were elite mobs, making the farm even more difficult. If you manage to complete this portion of the questline, you've overcome the most challenging part, and now that remains is defeating various world bosses, raid bosses, and collecting special items spread throughout Azeroth. Many of these steps still require a sizable raid group to kill the mobs because they're very specifically made to not be solo. Throughout the entire process, you've been gathering materials to slowly create your scepter, and once you have finished your massive journey, you may receive a fully recrafted scepter. It is here that you must wait for the war effort to complete, and you, as one of the very few in your entire server, will be prompted to ring the gong to open the gates. Once the gong is rung, you may turn in another quest and receive your very special legendary mount. After the gong is rung, a 10-hour event plays out where you may slay mighty boss creatures for great rewards. And anyone else who has a scepter may turn in the quest to get the mount as well. This mount has become arguably one of the most infamous mounts in the entire game, and is recognizable by every level of player. Seeing it is once in a blue moon, and it's so rare that Blizzard decided to honor the players already have it by giving them another mount called the Black Qiraji War Tank. This mount would be the exact same as the previous, but with an updated texture and model to show how timelessly you've been playing the game. Needless to say, seeing someone riding this mount means they are nothing but business, and have stuck around since the beginning with WoW. This will conclude our list of unobtainable mounts. WoW has become very known for its collectors, and seeing how high players can truly go in completing the game, but there's always going to be the sore thumb that sticks out like this list. There were many more mounts that have been removed from the game, and I'm curious to hear if you agree with the list or not. Are there any other unobtainable mounts that we might have missed, or do you have another idea for a future video just like this one? If so, let us know down in the comments.